Yep, recording. Okay. So if we could please start with you telling me your name and your role here at Richmond upon Thames Borough Council.
Okay, my name is Gareth Roberts, and I am the leader of the council of the London Borough of Richmond upon Thames. It's a Lib Dem administration which covers both the constituencies of Richmond Park and North Kingston and Twickenham.
Perfect. So in 2017, the Liberal Democrat candidate Sarah Olney lost her Richmond Park seat to the Conservative Zach Goldsmith by just 45 votes, which makes this one of the closest races in the country going into the 2019 election. So in your opinion, what does Miss Olney need to do differently from her 2017 campaign to win back this seat?
Okay, so what does Sarah need to do differently to win back the seat? Well, the campaign that she ran in 2017 was very good. It was a strong, positive campaign which got a lot of buy-in from local residents. So what we need to be able to do on this is not what Sarah needs to do, it's what the voters in Richmond Park and North Kingston need to do, and it's whether they need to consider whether their vote is going to count. And the way that their vote is going to count is to vote for Sarah if they remain leaning voter. If they voted for the Labour candidate in the last election, then they need to think to themselves, is that vote going to do any use this time around? So I would suggest that anybody in Richmond Park who's thinking of voting Labour needs to get behind Sarah in this election, very much like the Greens have done in stepping aside to ensure that a strong Remain voice is heard in Parliament for Richmond Park.
And on that note of the Green Party standing aside, do you think that how much of a benefit do you think that's going to have to Miss Olney and her campaign? Do you think that's going to make a big difference?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the Greens stepping aside, it's something which has happened in various seats within this borough. In fact, you could argue that we were one of the first boroughs to try this out. The Greens stood aside for Sarah in the by-election in 2016. They stood aside for Vince and for Sarah in 2017. And we had an arrangement in the council elections in 2018 where we had not a joint ticket, but an understanding in certain wards where it was a non-aggression type of arrangement. So people are getting used to this. It's a more grown-up way of dealing with politics. It's giving people making them feel that their vote is going to count. So what we need to be doing across the whole country, and this is what is good with the Remain Alliance, is we're seeing proper grown-up parties coming together to make sure that this idea of the wasted vote is consigned to the dustbin of history, to use the tired old cliche, so that people can think, yeah, I'm going to be able to vote, I'm going to vote with my conscience, and then people in other constituencies can do exactly the same there.
That's great, thank you very much. And on that note, how do you feel about first past the post voting system then? Would you rather we had a different electoral system being used?
Okay, my view on first past the post system was summed up beautifully in the ITV election debates yesterday when we were just given the choice of two candidates. All we saw was Labour or Conservative. In other seats, there's a choice, and they can vote for Lib Dem, they can vote for Green, they can vote for Plaid. But we don't want to have to keep doing these arrangements. We want to be in a position where everybody can vote entirely with their conscience. And if that means that we need to have a proportional system, then that's what we should bring in, so that people who want to vote Labour in Richmond Park can vote Labour with a clear conscience because they know that vote will count. People who want to vote for the Green Party, good heavens, in Richmond, people who want to vote for Brexit Party can vote for the Brexit Party if they want to. They don't get a chance to vote for Brexit Party in this election because, of course, Zach Goldsmith is endorsed by Nigel Farage.
Thank you very much. And on the note of kind of like parties collaborating more with one another, whether we keep the current voting system or change it at some point in the future, is more kind of bipartisanship and collaboration between political parties something you'd like to see more of?
It needs to be the future. Collaboration is entirely the future of politics. People have seen for the last 3 years since Brexit the polarisation, and they're completely sick of it. So now we must try to work together to deliver solutions which are going to bring real change to people up and down the country, whether it's on Brexit, whether it's the health service, whether it's at local level that we've achieved with the Green Party in Richmond upon Thames, whether it's at national level with the Remain Alliance. People like the idea of politicians working together, not the traditional Punch and Judy shouting match, which has been the hallmark of politics for the last, century. So we do need to be better, and we should try to be better.
Great. Can you please tell me just a little bit more about some of the kind of key issues you think exist in this constituency, and which you think Miss Olney should kind of focus on in her campaign?
Okay. Obviously, Brexit is very big. We are heavily Remain within this borough. We got the highest across Richmond upon Thames, both Twickenham and we had 38,000 votes at the Euro elections. It was an enormous vote. Sorry, I'm sounding like Trump there. It was an enormous vote. It was huge. But we had this really big vote there. So Brexit's going to be key, but that's going to be the same across the country. What is still a really big issue locally is Heathrow Airport expansion, the third runway, and we've been campaigning as Lib Dems against the expansion of Heathrow for the last, 40 years. And people are still wanting to ensure that their local politicians are stopping that. So Sarah is going out campaigning on that score. All of the main parties are. Zach's position is a little bit confused, given the fact that only 3 years ago he forced a by-election because he was so opposed to the expansion of Heathrow Airport, and now he's just taken a position with the government which is going to deliver Heathrow expansion. So you can see that there is now something of a clear line between Sarah's constant opposition and Zach's slightly confused position. There's all the issues about the NHS and the strains that we're going to be finding on our health services, and the delivery of free at the point of delivery healthcare. And of course, one of the big issues that we have in Richmond is school-placed funding, particularly special educational needs. But we are, again, working cross-party on that with our Conservative colleagues in Council, trying to make sure that the government will listen and deliver us the funding that we need to bridge the gap that we've got.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
And in the 2016 EU referendum, as you've kind of mentioned, Richmond Park, is a very heavily Remain area. So voted 71.3% for Remain in 2016. How much do you think that's going to help Miss Olney in her push to win back this seat?
How well is that going to help? It's going to be enormously helpful, to be honest. As I've mentioned earlier, we had a huge 38,000 across Twickenham and Richmond Park and North Kingston. About 27,000 people, I think, signed the petition for the revocation of Article 50. If anything, Richmond has become more Remain than it was before. And this is why we have this Remain alliance with the Green Party, because we are making sure that people know that we don't want to split the Remain vote. Yes, sorry, I've got a flea. Shall we start that one again? We can edit that out.
I can edit
you can edit all that.
Don't worry, I'll be editing all of this.
So where were we? How important is the Remain? Remain is huge within Richmond. It has only got stronger. You will go along on the marches, the People's Vote marches, and see people flooding onto the trains on Richmond and Twickenham and Hampton and Barnes stations, because people want to make sure that we stay within the EU. The EU isn't perfect. Now there's something for you to clip out. Richmond leaders, so we're not perfect. The EU isn't perfect, but we can do far better by remaining within inside and reforming than we could by leaving the EU, and with all the financial and societal disbenefits that will bring.
Brilliant. Final question. Can you tell me how you feel about the chances for the Liberal Democrat Party nationally, and what do you think they need to do to convince people in tight constituencies that they actually have a chance of winning?
Okay, first and foremost, people need to listen to us. For the last 5 years, people have been willing to write us off, even though a lot of the stuff we've been saying has chimed with the mainstream. So I think that our chances are good. There are going to be seats which we hadn't even considered coming into play, being very good for us. And those ones that we miss out on, we're going to miss out by a narrow margin. And you can bet your bippy that in the next election, which probably will be next year, given the frequency of elections that we have these days, that we will be taking seat upon seat upon seat upon seat. I mean, there are people who are talking that we're going to be in 3 figures, and that is perfectly achievable. However, I think that we should be maybe looking towards those places where we will definitely win. And if people are wanting to go out and help us, want to go out and support us, they should be looking to where they can use their vote. What they should be doing, everybody should be doing, is looking on the websites where if you want to do tactical voting, they will tell you where you can do tactical voting, so that you can make sure that your vote as a Remain supporter counts rather than wasting it. But we will see places like Esher and Walton. Hopefully we're going to unseat Dominic Raab. Hopefully we're going to take Wimbledon. And with a fair wind, we can take many more seats beyond that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was brilliant.
Sorry, I ran